2 videos ago, we did an Optiplex 3050 upgrade that included a power supply replacement. The outcome was pretty solid as far as the specs go, but physically, the machine wasn't looking so hot. And I boldly declared that I would be doing a case modification. But I am a horrible, horrible liar. I lied to you, I lied to myself, and worst of all, I lied to Chair Desk. Chair Desk, forgive me, but please, before you attack me with a pool noodle, there is a good reason. If this pans out, it will truly be a thing of beauty. I'm pretty sure that if it wasn't for the new power supply, I would actually be able to close the case as is. In the past, I never really even bothered looking for these Flex PSUs. It seems like they were either too low powered or too expensive if they did have enough power. Then I found this one, and I have to say, I'm really liking the looks of it so far. And sure, it wasn't the typical $25 used PSU that I usually get on eBay, but it wasn't terribly expensive either. This one was just over $40 and is supposed to be 400 watts. It was factory sealed when I got it, which was surprising and not something I'm used to considering I'm a used hardware fiend. I think 400 watts should be enough because I ran a similar build on an old HP Z240 that I have. That machine has a 400 watt stock supply and I was able to run an i7 6700, 32 gigabytes of RAM, a GTX 1060, and an HP Z turbo drive without issue. And the Optiplex build we're working on now is in the same arena. So let's swap out the PSU, and I even had an idea as to how we can get a little out of the box with some power cable trickery. That will probably fail, but we shall see. Like I mentioned, this is my first time using one of these Flex power supplies, and one thing that I found pretty neat is how these have almost their own kind of breakout board of sorts, as opposed to a standard PSU where the cables just run out from the power supply itself. On this one, we're going to be taking our connectors and running them from this breakout to the motherboard. And I'm not totally sure if it'll work, but this is what I was talking about. On this 400 watt version, there's only one 6+2 pin GPU connector that comes by default, but it also has this. This is a 4-pin to SATA and Molex power, but since I'm not using a 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch SSD and we have an M2 drive that we're running from, I don't specifically need this cable. So I have this 4-pin to 6-pin connector, and I don't know if it'll carry enough power, but if it does, this will be good for our second connector with the GTX 970. And if it's not enough power, I might have to swap out the graphics card or something. We're going to go ahead and we're just swapping out the old new power supply with this one, and I just want to test it and see if everything works to begin with. I really doubt the screws are going to line up, so later on I'll worry about maybe getting some double-sided tape or putting something together to actually hold this new power supply in the case. But for now, we're just going to see if it actually works. So with the old one removed and the new one in here, we're going to go ahead and put our connectors into this. I don't know if it's technically called a breakout board. I'm not sure what the technical name for this component is when it's actually on the power supply. Like I said, it's the first time I've actually used one, but we're going to connect those and then run all of our connectors to the motherboard. And once everything's hooked up, we'll just go ahead and plug the computer in and see if our little scheme pans out. Oh, and in case anyone's interested in the specs, I'll have them listed in the description, or you can watch the Optiplex upgrade video, and I'll link that below as well. Gather round, children, to hear a story about failure, then success, then failure again. So with the new power supply installed in the GTX 970, I was able to close the case, but then my little scheme with the adapter cable didn't pan out, and the GPU wasn't getting enough power to run, which sucked, but that's alright. I tried swapping it out. I installed a 1070, and this time it actually booted up and ran fine. So I think a 1060, 1070 would be a good match for this, since it only has the 1060 has the one 6-pin connector and the 1070 has the 6+2 pin connector. Would probably be a good match. Was running well. Then I tried to close the case, and it, unlike the 970, is about 1 inch too big to actually shut it. So if anybody knows of a brand of 1060 that happens to be like an inch shorter than standard, please let me know. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm gonna have to use a different type of GPU or something. But at least it ran. So overall, I know the power supply works, and the power supply is pretty sweet. One of these days I'm going to make a video that's not a fail video. Anyway, thanks again for watching, I appreciate it, and I will see you later.